This looks like the magic bullet thing, but it's not because, you take this and the studies are very ambiguous in this. If you need it, it's great. If you already get enough of it won't help.
The body is a very smart machine, right? If NAD levels are declining and then we try to intervene and put in an external substrate to try to increase the NAD levels, could that then start to throw things out of balance anyway? Because the body has its own processes. There's so much coming out now that the NAD supplements they're really not doing anything. As far as boosting NAD levels, some work okay for different things, some of them, but it's very, very hit and miss. And the dosages have to be much higher than generally are recommended. So they're in the gram doses.
Yeah, it costs a fortune.
And it costs a fortune.
And here's another way to make it. How about you just go exercise?
Exactly.
It makes NAD.
Hey guys, welcome to the ATP project. You're with your host, Steve and Nic.
Hey Nic, how are you?
Hey Steve, I got through it without laughing.
I know, but laughter is the best medicine.
That's right. You know what? It could probably even help you live longer, Steve.
What? Really?
Oh, see, I got one in this time.
Gee whiz.
I know. See?
Well, why did you say that, Nic? What's going on today?
So we're talking about longevity today, Steve.
Oh.
All about longevity.
Like the Highlander.
Yes, like the Highlander.
So you remember the 80s movie?
I do.
You're showing your age there.
I am showing my age, so yes. So ever since that movie, people have been trying to discover what kept him alive forever, Steve.
But
What's the secret to longevity?
Exactly. And what is the secret? I mean, we've known for many, many years since, but let's go back to 1921. The Nobel Prize was for a doctor who said and cultured cells for 20 years and said, well, cells are immortal, so they live forever. So therefore, humans can live forever. Now, and they've since found out there was methodological problems with that. And along comes Leonard Hayflick, who's quite a famous anti-aging guy, who I found out died a few months ago.
I know, you were shocked.
I was shocked. I was sitting there going, oh, no, I saw him at a conference about 10 years ago.
Let's premise the fact that he was 96 when he died, Steve. So I think
but he was a longevity doctor, so you think...
Well, there you go. So him, 96 longevity doctor, it's pretty good.
It was, and he came up with the idea that cells replicate, and it depends on the cell, but around 50 times, and then they become what they call senescent and don't replicate anymore, and then when the cell ages enough, it dies. Yeah. So there's a limit to human longevity. And then, of course, okay, well, what's that limit and how do we extend it? Because everyone wants to live more. Well, I won't say everyone. Most people want to live as long as they can and as healthy as they can.
Yes, and I think we should distinguish, lifespan and health span. So longevity, I guess it's kind of a mix of living as long as you can, but also living healthfully as long as you can. So, and we can talk about, do we really want to live forever at the end? Because I have my ideas on that. Do you want to live forever? I don't know.
I want to hear those.
And why? If you do want to live forever, why?
It's funny because we do everything all day to stop ourselves from dying, like drinking that, eating lunch, whatever, driving carefully home when I drive. I won't be going like, So we're all trying to live like day to day. And also what we should be doing is trying to extend our, what I'm going to say, health span, making up a sort of term that we made up in the metagenics days. Yeah. And that's about living long without serious disease.
Yeah.
I think we can both agree.
Quality of life. You want to enjoy your life, not be 20 years in a dementia ward or whatever it is.
Exactly, so, or physically disabled.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, even cognitively great, but physically you want the whole package really. So. Yeah,
and I know you want to start this with a mindset of thinking and longevity. So there's a lot of research about that, and we're talking about mental health here because you know what kills a lot of men, especially younger men, is suicide. It's the leading cause of death, I think, in the 20s and 30s for men.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
And I think we first need to say, when you're looking at longevity, for the majority of the population, and I'm going to say there's a very, very small population that are actually focusing on longevity to the nth degree. So most people don't have their foundations down, yet they want to know that the pill that's going to make them live longer or be healthy or stop cancers and things like that, but they're not doing all the basic things.
That's right.
At all. So what's the point of even looking at longevity if you haven't got your stress under control, if you're not, haven't got the right nutrition, things like that, basic things. But people skip over that because, you know what, it's too hard. If you've got to diet, if you've got to eat well, you can't eat rubbish, or you've got to exercise every day, or you've got to, put time into stress management. People don't want to do that because it's too hard, it's too time consuming, it's life the modern world doesn't really sort of allow for that anymore.
Absolutely.
So what's the best supplement that we can have for longevity? But what's the point? Because it's not going to do it. Well, a lot of the supplements don't do anything anyway, which we're going to talk about. But what's the point of trying to do that when you can't deal with this? So we thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the things that actually have been shown to help with longevity, healthy aging.
Yeah.
So one of them is mindset.
Right.
So thinking younger is actually shown to actually help with you living longer. So there's all about the power of belief.
So it's okay for me to be immature on the podcast and make immature comments? Probably not that, is it?
That's right.
Oh, okay, good. I'll keep it up. They get edited out, lucky, but I'd say some pretty silly things.
You do, you do. Yeah, I know. And there is bloopers reels, and for some reason they all get edited to make me look like I'm the only one that does the bloopers.
Oh, no, I'm perfect, so I never make a mistake.
Very few bloopers. I don't know. I think there's a bit of a conspiracy going on there. Anyway, back to this.
So we're going to talk a bit about stinking thinking, and there is a saying, and you can talk after it, but basically it says that don't take life too seriously because no one gets out alive.
That's true. That is very true.
So we've got to change our mindset based on it, and don't sweat the small stuff. There's all these sayings about it, but what do you want to bring to the table with regard to longevity?
Well, I mean, you know people that go around that say, "No, I'm so old." Well, actually, I know some of them so old, but you say tongue in cheek, but I don't think you actually think it.
I don't care about age.
Healthy,
yeah,
so
I don't care.
I don't think you have that mindset of I'm getting old and decrepit. But there is a lot of studies to show that the more you focus on something, the more it's going to happen. So if you're constantly thinking, I'm getting old or I can't, do what I used to do. I get clients that come to me in their 30s and they're having trouble with energy and fatigue and training, and they go, well, it's probably just because I'm getting old.
Yeah.
In their 30s.
Yeah.
I'm like, in your 30s, you should not be having those problems for starters. And two, you should not be thinking that you're old at 30. So having that mindset of, I'm getting old when you're in your 30s or your early 40s. I'm going to say even 50s. I don't think people in their 50s are old, Steve.
Good.
Do you think they're old? How do you feel, Steve?
No, but I mean, I feel better than I did when I was in my 20s because in my 20s I had crippling arthritis. So I was older then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, I was literally in hospital for 6 weeks, and after that I was just decrepit.
Yeah.
And it was shit.
Yeah.
And I've certainly got fitter as I got older because, look, it's getting to the point now where I'm not making like gains in the gym and I'm putting on muscle very slowly. I'm slowly putting on muscle. But the fact that I'm 55 means that will slow down. But, I mean, gee whiz, I'm way better than I was in my 20s.
Yeah, I think I would be the same. Probably in my I think I'm fitter and healthier in my 50s than I was in my 20s.
You're in your 50s, Nick, now.
I'm in my 50s.
So you're 28 last podcast.
I was 28 last podcast. 50, not 50s yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm 50. But yeah, a lot of it is mindset. I don't feel old. I've never felt old. So there is definitely a big factor in that. So yeah, that's one thing. So mindset. So make sure that you're not, thinking yourself older than you are. And I have a lot of friends who are my age who look a lot older than I do.
Wow.
And they live their life as an older person.
Yeah.
So I'm old now or I'm this. I'm like, but you're not. So watch your thoughts because that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned here victim mentality. That's a terrible thing. Like, poor me. And it's like, that's not going to get you anywhere.
No.
I mean, you may be a victim of something or other, of a crime or something, but you can't. Because that's me. That was me in the 20s. Why have I got arthritis? I'm only 20.
Yeah.
I wasn't 20-something. I was 20.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's terrible. But
that mindset doesn't get you out of the situation.
Nah, it doesn't help at all.
No, terrible. And I've had victim mindsets in the past. I've had pretty significant things in my life happen that shouldn't never have happened.
No,
I had the victim mindset for a long time, and it takes you longer to get out of the what's going on with that mindset than if you had a positive mindset, and you just can start to rot away. Yeah. So, and then you will age because you're constantly stuck in that misery. So it's really significant.
Amazing. Your next heading there is mental and emotional support. And I've said on podcasts, a friend my age I lost a few months ago. And he was, when he had a job and or when he had a purpose, like it says there, sense of purpose, when he had a job, he actually got more work done on his farm
yes.
than when he lost his job and had no work.
Yeah.
which is counterintuitive. You want to talk to that? What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you always get more done the busier you are.
Yes.
Than when you don't. Because if you don't have any time and you've got so much to do, well, I've got to structure this so I can get everything done in the time frame. But if you've got endless amounts of time, like, I'll get to it later.
Yeah.
You never get to it, right?
Yeah.
So mental and emotional health is really important when it comes to longevity. And
Yes.
the three big ones are, which we didn't really talk about, cognitive health, which we'll talk about,
Yeah.
physical health, and emotional health. They're the three big areas when we're looking at sort of living longer, living better and healthier. They're the sort of areas you want to focus on.
If you lose one of those three, you're old. I don't care what age you are, what your number is.
Yeah.
If you even lose, physical health's obvious, but even emotional health, you're not like something bad happens and you're sad for a few weeks. I mean, real emotional distress, the victim mentalities, poor me, I wish I hadn't done that years ago, or wishing your life away.
Yeah.
And people do that, and they literally physiologically age.
Yeah, 100%, because it creates stress, or stress in the body, and stress will definitely age you. But yes, emotional health, so, if you lose your emotional health, then you're going to lose your physical health because you won't be out doing the healthy things.
Correct.
Because of your mindset.
Yeah, you spend all day in bed.
Yeah, then that'll increase inflammation, which then increases neuroinflammation. So then you lose your cognition.
Yeah. So
then you basically lost everything anyway. So mental and emotional health is a really important factor that a lot of people really don't focus on enough. So sense of purpose is a really big one that I see. So many people, and I have someone relatively close to me who's retired, and they've retired quite young.
Yes.
And they have no sense of purpose, and their mental health has taken a huge dip. And their physical health as well, because they've got nothing to get up for every morning. Yeah. So I think that's a really huge factor. And if someone retires, get a hobby that you get up for every day to do something. So because
if you've got nothing on,
you've got nothing.
That's really dangerous, I feel, because people end up doing nothing.
And decline in social support and community is another really big one as well. So as you get older and people drift away and people might die, that sort of thing.
You become isolationist, which is, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do anything anymore.
And I think now, post-pandemic, we are more isolated because a lot of people work from home. A lot, people don't want to be out the way they used to be before the pandemic.
Correct.
So people are becoming very isolated. I mean, I work from home when I'm not here, and I live in a very small town, so I don't really have interaction with a lot of people. And I think it's really important, and we're really losing that. So that's another part of it.
That's huge.
Yeah. Fulfillment, so having something to look forward to every day. All these things are really important. So that's an area that I think is really forgotten about when people are looking at how do I, when I live longer? Well, check your emotional health and your mindset as a start.
I think it's a great way to start a podcast. Look, we're going to get nerdy later. We're going to give you some things that'll help you live better, look better, and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things in there is going to make me look better. I might go into what that is, but that's in there. So I'm always trying. You always should be trying to self-improve.
So everyone wants the magic bullet, Steve.
Yeah,
right. They want the easy thing.
Give me a pill, I'll take it, and that'll make me live longer.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't want to focus on these. So we just wanted to sort of touch on these areas that really people don't really think about that much, but they're so important as the foundation. Including what we're going to talk about next with fitness and nutrition and all of that sort of thing.
Fitness is a tricky one because when we're talking to anti-aging, we're probably addressing 50-something-year-olds, 60-something-year-olds, and they are just terrible at exercise, and most. I'm not saying everyone, but it's very difficult to get. And I know a family member who really should exercise, and they say, I'm not motivated to exercise. I don't think it's about motivation. I think motivation's overrated. I think it's about discipline.
Yeah, discipline.
Discipline. I am going to exercise tomorrow morning. Yeah. Bang. This morning I had a meeting in Brisbane, 7:30, training young naturopaths, blah, 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 good. I had to get on the road by 6. I still went for a run before 6. Yeah. I went for a run at 4:30. Yeah. Now that's discipline. Yeah, well, was I motivated to? No. Would I rather sleep in? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I exercised at 3 this morning, Steve.
Oh, yeah, you're a machine though.
Well, no, I'm not. But I did because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it for the rest of the day because I had to get on the road.
Did you hear that listening? There wasn't a typo there. She exercised at 3 a.m.
I exercised at 3 a.m. because I had to leave at 4:30.
Yeah, you had a really early start.
Yeah. So you do it when you can do it. But it's a really important part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I want to talk about one more thing before we get into fitness.
I'll go for it, yeah.
Time in nature.
Okay. Because this is the most unnatural environment here under artificial lights. Artificial plants.
Yeah, these are artificial plants.
We're the only real things in here apart from
got fake bugs.
Oh, there's
fake
bugs.
Snake on the ground. Don't ask me why there's a fake snake on the ground.
I think I threw it at you one day.
You did throw it at me, yeah. But
nature, okay.
Nature. I mean, we're losing our connection to the outdoors. I mean, people are indoors all the time. I mean, look at us today. We got to the office at say 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then we'd be sitting here all day.
Yeah.
Then I'll go back because I stay down here for night. So I'll go back to the hotel, which is 5 minutes away, sit in the hotel and work. Then I'll come back in the morning. So I've literally. And I got in the car at 4:30 in the morning. So I've literally not been going to be outside all day for the whole time. And that's a really common scenario for so many people. And when you lose your connection to nature, you sort of lose that circadian rhythm that we have. So you're getting out in the sun. You're out when it's daylight. You're coming in when it's dark. You're getting the fresh air. You're getting all that sort of stuff. So it is actually proven that nature is actually very beneficial for our health, Steve, and lack of being in nature can cause a lot of health problems.
And Nic, you're referring to a paper in front of you there, which is great. I'm
referring to a paper in front of me, a paper from the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine.
I love lifestyle medicine.
Yeah, and it's called Nature is Medicine, the 7th unofficial pillar of lifestyle medicine. And it's nature, being in nature, forest bathing, Steve.
Oh, my God. What the hell is that? Is that something I got charged with once when I was younger? What is forest bathing? That sounds dodgy. What is it?
So it started in Japan.
Oh, my God.
And it's called Shinrin-yoku. So if you say it with the Japanese accent, it sounds right.
Shinrin-yoku,
forest bathing. It's a Japanese term meaning forest bathing or taking time in the forest atmosphere. So it basically means spending time in the forest or in nature, natural other environments to help to improve your physical, mental and emotional health.
I like it.
So, but time in nature, amazing for your health. So some of the benefits of being in nature, some of them are improved immune function.
Wow,
so improved natural killer cell activity.
Nice, yeah.
Increased cancer-fighting protein production, less cancer, less acute urinary tract infection, upper respiratory infection, and improved healing ability. Cardiovascular health or health benefits, lowered blood pressure, lowered heart rate, increased heart rate variability. Endocrine, so improved endocrine function, so improved blood glucose control and lower cortisol levels.
Oh, yeah, I bet it would.
So obviously it's impacting your stress response there. Neurological benefits, so better cognitive performance. And here's one for you, Steve, less migraines.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to spend more time. You needed to spend more time in nature back in the day.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, that's an incredible resume. I mean, that's better than any pill I can even think of, any supplement.
Yeah.
And we work for a supplement company. I wish at the end of this we'd say, oh, here's the tablet steak that'll help you all.
Yeah.
This doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Well, even mental and emotional health. So improved mood, less anxiety, depression, improved symptoms of ADHD, which is becoming a really commonly diagnosed condition in adults. Even intestinal health. So get this, more short-chain fatty acid production. So we talked about short-chain fatty acids.
Butyrate, propionate, valerate, all those.
So, and that's just from being out in nature. So any sort of environment, whether that be the bush, the forest, the beach, everyone has their thing. I like the beach.
Yeah, I like
the beach.
I go to the beach too.
Every day, every morning.
Oh, your beach is amazing.
It is amazing, and I never see anyone on it, which is even better.
I even let vicious German shepherds loose on that beach.
They do let loose on that beach. So here's a scary stat for you.
Oh, don't scare me. I'm old enough. What am I terrified about now?
So here's a stat: and Americans that spend most of their time indoors.
Oh, yeah.
So they determined that Americans live up to 87% of their lives in buildings and the other 6% in vehicles, for a total of 93% of their life leaving only 97% of their life indoors.
Wow, some of them would.
So 93%. So only 7% of the time is spent outdoors, and a lot of times that 7% is getting to and from places, right?
Yeah.
So not actually being out in nature.
And then maybe it might be stressful. You might be walking down out for lunch to get a sandwich or back in, America, a donut.
Yeah.
Something. Oh, a pretzel. American food, I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about food later too and longevity.
We're going to talk about nutrition, yeah.
But wow.
Yeah, so
it's terrible.
So and people don't get outside, and it is actually so detrimental. Like I said, it impacts circadian rhythm. You're losing your connection to nature. We're supposed to be in nature. You get your feet in the ground. Like the grounding is actually that's.
My wife loves that. She goes out more and does it, and she's a nurse who's very left brain, very logical, and she feels better. And it's quite incredible because I'm thinking about outside, and I think today I'm going to spend probably about 2% of my day outside.
Yeah. Yeah, probably the same.
I went for a run this morning, so that might bump it up a few percent. That's only about 20 minutes. But gee whiz, that's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, so,
Gee, thanks, Nic.
Yeah, so, everyone can get outside. Even if you live in the middle of the city in an apartment, there's always green areas, there's parks and things like that.
True.
Get out in the grass, take your shoes off. Just something. It has a massive impact. So, you're thinking about your longevity pills and you're living in an office and an apartment all day and all night, and what's the point? So some really, really beneficial impacts from being out in nature.
And grounding's part of that. And it sounds a bit wanky, grounding. I remember when I first
it does sound wanky, doesn't it? But there's so much actually really evidence-based benefits to that.
Because as we move through this atmosphere, we're knocking electrons off ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So when we hit the Earth, it basically reforms the electrons. Like clouds. When they rub together, the electrons fly off and they have to get electrons from the Earth, and that's what we call lightning.
Yeah.
So that's all that is. It's literally grounding the Earth. Yeah. So we can do that, obviously, without lightning and death. We can go out in the grass. So that's really important.
Yeah, so get outside, get fresh air, get the sunshine.
Okay,
reset the circadian rhythm by being out in the morning. If you could get the chance before you go to work, get up, as you said, do some exercise.
Well, imagine going for a forest run.
Oh, look at that double benefit, Steve.
I know.
Exercise and running.
We've got to talk about exercise.
Yeah, exercise.
For longevity.
What's the best exercise for longevity, Steve?
Yeah, the most dangerous one is nothing.
That's right.
Because that kills you quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's talk about fitness.
So when we're looking at longevity, what are some of the metrics that we look at?
Yeah, because we've got to measure this stuff. We can't just say, go off and exercise, people. That's not an ATP podcast.
No.
An ATP podcast is like, okay, what do we do? How do you measure someone's health and fitness? How would you do it?
So one of the best metrics is the VO2 max.
Right, VO2 max, which is V oxygen maximum.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So that means the maximum rate that the body can consume oxygen during intense exercise. So it helps with indications of cardiovascular fitness, aerobic endurance. So it's a really good metric to sort of measure. And obviously the higher your VO2 max, the better for longevity.
Yep.
So the studies say. Because
the fitter you are and the more energy you can produce, because the amount of oxygen you consume is directly proportional to the amount of energy or ATP you produce.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So it generally goes down with age, therefore super important to continue to exercise. And I think it goes down with age because we exercise less as we get older, right?
Yeah.
And not to the same intensity and all that sort of thing. Males tend to have higher VO2 max.
Of course we do.
We're
better.
Larger heart and
we're just better.
Muscle mass. So there's that. Endurance athletes have higher levels. Genetics come into play for some people. So there's some of the factors that influence it.
Yep.
But yeah, so as you said, it's a good performance metric.
Yep.
It's a good health indicator, as you said, for cardiovascular respiratory health. So ways to improve it.
Yeah. Let's improve it.
Yeah. So this is I'm going to skip over that because let's not. HIIT training is a really good way.
High intensity interval training.
Yep.
HIIT. Yep. For the people listening.
Strength training.
Yep.
Aerobic training, so that's all obviously ways you can improve it. So, but that doesn't just mean go out and do some cardio or do some strengths or stick to, I do my strength training, so therefore I'm sort of improving my VO2 max, which it's minimal compared to. So when we're talking about exercise for longevity, and everyone says, well, what's the best exercise? What's the best way to exercise?
I'm going to ask that question.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this with my research is you want to do a broad range of things. So as I say, I love strength training, so I do prioritize strength training, and to the detriment of maybe cardio sometimes because I hate cardio. So
I remember you used to swim for millions of hours.
I love swimming, yeah, but I don't look at that as cardio.
That's cardio.
I look at that as strength because
Really?
I'd get quite big in the back when I did strength when I did swimming. Yeah,
I don't.
I don't because I never used to get puffed. I just swim. That's
But
great.
that's cardio. That's
Yeah, it is, but yeah, it's true. But true. Okay, so I will reframe that. I like swimming, but I hate other cardio.
the way I do it is I swim for about 1.5 K, takes me about half an hour. And the last I do like lap 25, 27 and 29 I sprint.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's lap 25 sprint, puff, warm out, come back, sprint, and I really try and burn myself out when I get out.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of...
And that's that sort of that HIIT training or that
Yeah.
interval training is a really good way to build your VO2 max. So you do your sprint. So if I get on the spin bike, say for instance, I hate it, so I might spend 20 minutes on it, but I'll do sprints. I'll do 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off for it, whatever. That's a really good way to do it as well. But you want to work... So, you want to do your cardiovascular, but don't just do running. Do running and swimming and cycling. And the more variety you can get across the board, the more, muscles that you're recruiting, the more movements, different movements that you're doing. So working in all planes of the body. So, when you're strength training, if people just did their bodybuilding training, so their squats, their deads, their, chins, that type of thing. Work in different planes as well is really important. Stability is another really big thing. So working on stability, because obviously as we age, stability becomes really important because you don't want to fall over, break anything. So if you have good stability and good musculature as well, you can actually catch yourself from falling. So explosive movements, plyometrics is a really good one as well.
And what's that?
Well, that's so explosive. So jumping, that sort of stuff is really good. I've just started doing some plyo actually again. I haven't done that for ages. My old knees.
Oh, yeah, when you get to your age, it's all over. No, but like this morning, because I only had a short amount of time to exercise, so I did a little lap. And coming back to the last bit, there's a really terrible uphill bit, and I sprinted it just to get that high intensity because I only had 20 minutes. Thought, screw this, flat out up the hill, got exhausted at the top, stopped for a bit, and then plotted my way down back home. And it was like, But that's how you do it.
Yeah.
You can't just say, I hate the weasel words. I'll try and get a bit of exercise in.
Yeah.
When I was in practice, when people say, what do you mean you're going to try to exercise? You're either doing it or you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Your heart doesn't care whether you're trying to or not.
No.
It depends on whether you do it. So you've really got to, get that bridge, what we used to call closing the gap in my day, which was the good intentions of exercising and that actual exercise, you got to close that so they meet.
Yeah.
And we used to call it closing the gap.
Exactly. And, we're not talking about specific goals here like, like body composition. So someone wants to build a lot of muscle or someone wants to get very cardiovascular fit. We're talking about longevity, which is different. So therefore you want to be across the board. You want to be doing lots of different exercises. So because as you've got to think about what happens when you age, you want to be able to bend down and pick stuff up. You want to be able to get up the stairs. You want to be able to carry your groceries as you're getting older. So therefore you really need to be across it, in every sort of movement.
Yep.
Flexibility is another one as well, maintaining flexibility.
I'm shit at that.
Yeah, you are.
Really bad at that.
Yeah, you are.
Really bad.
And then you want to maintain your muscle mass. Obviously, the more muscle mass you have, the better for longevity. It's a very metabolically active muscle, as we said. So as far as what is the best exercise, there isn't one best exercise. It's really, you want to have a really good variety of all of them and do them all really well. Be able to do them all really well, which is a really good indicator that for longevity. So if you've got good cardiovascular fitness, if you've got good strength, if you've got good explosive movements, you've got good stability, good flexibility, it all is really important across the board. So,
of course.
and there are some metrics, when you're looking at longevity and fitness and aging, and there's an amazing guy called Peter Attia. Look him up. He's all about longevity. He's really, really into a lot of longevity. Very, very interesting. They've got lots of good research. He has a couple of, he has a lot of metrics, but some, as an example, some of his are like dead hang for at least 2 minutes, or farmer carry your body weight for 2 minutes, or wall sit for 2 minutes.
I don't know if I could do any of that.
Really? Could you not dead hang for 2 minutes?
Don't know. I'll have to let you know next time.
Try.
Oh, dead hang, yeah. It's right up there. Yeah, then I'll dead hang and they fall off. I'll dead.
Yeah, so that's good for grip strength, shoulder mobility, that type of thing. It's actually harder than it sounds. I did all these. It's harder.
Did you? Can you do 2 minutes?
Yeah, but it's hard. It is harder than I thought it would be. I'll breeze it in.
I went to an ATP
when you're hanging there.
thingo, and they said if you get 90 seconds, you get a free shaker. And probably about 30% of people could do 90 seconds.
Yeah, it's longer than you think when you're just hanging there.
And that was at a CrossFit Games thing about a year and a half ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
And you know who could do it the longest? Little young girls.
Yeah, because they're so light, Steve. They got nothing hanging off there.
I'm not going to be beaten by a girl, especially a little 8-year-old.
Could you wall sit for 2 minutes, Steve?
I don't know. I haven't done wall sittings for ages.
Well,
I reckon I'd have to say yes.
I think you could do it.
I think I could do it.
Yeah. Might be shaking a little bit by the end.
Well, I'll be shaking a lot by the end of it.
I was shaking a little bit by the end. And farmer carry a body weight for 2 minutes.
One side or two sides? Oh, you mean?
I did two sides. Well,
so like if your body weight was, make this up, so 60,
yes,
30
30
each?
kilo dumbbells, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I have to do 40 each. I could probably do that.
Yeah, up and back. I was walking with them.
Okay.
But there's so many metrics, so many metrics. But there's things like that, you know. Do you want to think about functionality? So, if you're older and you want to pick up your grandkids to be able to bend down and pick them up. So, or if you want to be able to, like I said, carry your groceries in from the car up the stairs, things like that. So they're all things you want to be able to continue to do when you're a lot older.
Independently too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So all these things are good metrics to sort of see how you're progressing in that direction. But lots of variety, as I said, movements in every plane, and then all your cardiovascular fitness and mix it up. Like I said, swimming, some, team sports even is really good as well.
Get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're all comfortable just waddling off to the gym and doing a bit of exercise and that, but then...
and I'm guilty of it. I would just stick with my strength training. Interesting.
And Nick, it's like, okay, so that's very important if you can test those things and, do your VO2 max. VO2 max is typically higher in men. Women live longer than men, as we know. Well, there's a few reasons for that, but you've got some wonderful biomarkers of here to basically predict your biological age, which is different to your chronological age.
Yeah, so when you're looking at, longevity, again, it's metrics and testing and tracking, and that's where the problem has been with longevity, because how do you test longevity? How do you measure it?
Yeah.
You really can't.
No.
So there's always been things going around of what are the best biomarkers for testing longevity. So there aren't really any specific biomarkers of aging, really.
Not really. Telomere length we can talk about.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. There's over 1,000 studies here in this review that says that they've tested that. And there's problems with it's too long and problems if it's too short.
Yeah, so we'll talk about
real tricky thing. Because everyone's thinking now telomeres, I bet.
Yeah, how do you lengthen your telomeres? And we'll tell you the problems with that. But yeah, there's research been going on since the 80s trying to find for biological markers of aging.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to find. And you said they're only starting to discover some now, but it's still really sort of wishy-washy. So here's one of the best ways to look, and I love this one, one of the best ways to measure aging, Steve.
What is it? Tell me and I'll measure.
Look in the mirror, Steve.
Oh, shit. I'm in trouble.
Look in the mirror. How well are you aging? And in comparison to people in your chronological age group.
Oh, most of them are dead at my age. So I'm doing all right.
Sad, isn't it?
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
But it is, and it's an easy way to start looking at it. Are you more do you have more wrinkles than people your age? You have grey hair, things like just look at yourself. Look at yourself and look at a photo of yourself 10 years before and 5 years before and 2 years before, and have a look at the progression.
Yeah.
But that's a really good way just to start. What's your posture like? That sort of thing. So
my posture's getting better. My posture's getting better.
Yeah, your posture's good, Steve. You don't drag your leg anywhere near as much as you used to.
No, it's...
No, I'm joking.
So give me some biological markers like blood tests and that sort of thing. You've got a beautiful graph here that shows you what, you can actually physiologically measure in your blood, and that's a good way to measure how well or how healthy you're aging.
So there was these are 19 markers, and this was in the Journal of Aging Cell.
Yep.
And this study uses biomarker data collected from the blood samples of almost 5,000 participants.
Yep.
This is from a study called the Long Life Family Study.
Nice.
And out of this, they generated 26 different predictive biomarker signatures. Which we won't talk about, the 26 signatures, but these are their markers that they used.
And these you can get from your doctor.
Yeah, when I test a lot of these as well. So
some of them you can get from your doctor.
Some of them you can. Some of them
are, routine, and some of them are a bit out there.
Yeah, so your inflammatory biomarkers, obviously, you want to get them done. So your high-sensitivity C-reactive protein.
Yep.
Pretty common and pretty standard.
Very common.
I get that one. Interleukin-6.
You can't really measure that, but
no.
HSCRP is made from interleukin-6 hitting the liver, so they're kind of the same test.
The same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
N-terminal B-type natriuretic peptide.
Yeah,
that one is not a common one to get tested either. Monocyte count, absolute monocyte count. Obviously, we do monocytes a lot.
Yep.
And then your white blood cell count, pretty standard as well.
And it's funny because too many white blood cells is bad too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, too many and not enough can be an issue sometimes. Hematological biomarkers, so your red blood cells, red blood cell distribution widths, that's pretty standard on most blood tests. Transferrin receptor, it's not as common.
No.
The mean corpuscular volume, so MCV.
Yep.
Hemoglobin.
Yep, that's good.
Yep. And then diabetes-associated biomarkers, so glycated hemoglobin, so that's your HbA1c, that's
hemoglobin
your long-term predictor of your blood sugars. Soluble receptor for advanced glycation end product, which is not as common. Again, harder to test that one. Adiponectin.
Yep.
Insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1.
You don't want too much of that?
No, you don't want too much of that. This is growth. Lipid biomarkers, obviously your cholesterol, lipids, things like that, as we've talked about, LDL. And your subfractions, which we will also add in there, would be a good one.
We did a big podcast on that.
Yeah. So, if you're getting lipids measured, I now, to be honest, I look at lipids as very basic, and I don't take a massive consideration unless I'm looking at, depending on the client in front of me, and looking at their subfractions. So I'd be looking at subfractions
very
as well.
important.
Lipoprotein A and all that sort of things, apolipoprotein B, they're really good ones to look at. Go back and have a look at listen to our last cholesterol.
We went
LDL
in depth on that one, didn't we? Remember that?
On subfractions. Endocrine biomarkers, so sex hormone binding globulin.
Yep.
Good one. DHEA levels as well, so adrenal function, that sort of thing. And then your renal biomarkers, so albumin, creatinine, cystatin C.
Cystatin C it's not used in Australia very much. We use estimated glomerular filtration rate, or EGFR, in Australia mostly.
Standard.
Yeah, that's a very standard one.
And I will say with that, I see a lot of them lowish. Well, no, so the doctors won't even look at it as being a factor unless it's below 59.
Yeah.
But really, ideally you want it above 90.
Well, EGFR greater. My Bex is above 90, but mine's not, because for years I was on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and I mean whopping doses of them. So that's always a number that I'm always particularly keen on, but I'm always above 70.
Okay. Yeah.
But for me, that's it should be above 90.
Yeah, above 90 is optimal.
Yeah.
But if you see it dropping, doctors, and if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, everything's fine, and they look at EGFR is 80, and then it's 73, and then it's 68. You're like, well, something's going on here. But so there's some biomarkers you can do.
Yeah.
And as I said, a lot of them are pretty standard in blood testing. Obviously, it's a lot harder to get a lot of markers done these days with Medicare and that sort of thing cracking down. So it's harder, but privately you can do them. And there's so many private companies out that do them, iScreen and a few others that will do them if you don't have a practitioner.
The good thing is some of these things a doctor will readily do, and then there's some that they won't.
Yeah.
And the ones they don't, you would just say to them, listen, can I pay for that one?
Yeah.
And the doctor will go, sure, because they'll just order it. They've got an account with QML or Queensland Medical Laboratories or whatever state you're in. And, you can get those weird ones done. And I do that a bit. I've done a few times with Beck, get some weird tests.
Yeah, you
like
can always pay for
10 years ago, lipoprotein A I got with her because her LDL was high. And the doctor's freaking out, said, can you order what's with her? Get lipoprotein A. What's that? It was 10 years ago. No one knew what it was. Yeah. And so we got the test.
It's $30 now to pay for, you can get $30.
Yeah, it's a cheap test.
Apolipoprotein B is $13.
13?
It's pretty cheap to get, so you want to get them done yourselves.
Jesus.
Yeah, super cheap. So
I didn't know it was that cheap.
that's cheap, yeah, is that cheap? If you want to get a full subfraction profile done, that's about $200, but that's very in-depth. But yeah, so even looking at your bloods can give you really good indications of how well things are tracking, your health, and as far as longevity is concerned, there's some to look out for. So here's another area that's huge when it comes to longevity or, declining early is cognitive decline.
Geez, Nick, you're going to give me some bad news about people over 40, aren't you?
Because that starts to happen over 40, but sometimes it can happen earlier, and that's when you really need to look at it.
I've got some good news on that for me personally, and what I did was when I was getting migraines heavily, I got an MRI of my brain, perfectly healthy. So, that was good news. Even the hippocampus.
Yeah.
And I looked for amyloid plaques, none of that. So, because my family's got Alzheimer's, not all of them, but some of them. So I was very looking out for the hippocampal volume, and it was good. So,
good. So your brain's good. You've got a good brain, Steve. We all knew that.
The moment I have.
Yeah.
but as you point out in this study, that over 40, your brain shrinks by 5%.
It does. Yeah.
So as people get older, your brain will decline.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully you outlive that.
Yes.
So, look, we're all going to get slower as we age and, not as sharp as we used to be or whatever. But it's the marked decline we're all worried about. And, exercise is very good for your brain. So that's good news.
Exercise and also, brain training is really good for your brain as well. And that comes back to that people that retire.
Yeah.
They just can go downhill cognitively as well because they're not using their brain anymore. You need to continually do new things.
Yeah.
You create new pathways in the brain. As soon as you stop doing that, it all goes downhill. So nutrition's role in cognitive decline, Steve?
Oh, yeah.
So a synapse is the point of communication between two neurons.
Join, yeah.
So proper synapse formation is dependent on adequate nutrition.
In the textbooks, they look like two bones.
They do look
that.
like two bones, yes.
Yeah, and they're the gap between them, and the little neurotransmitters go across them there, the serotonins, the dopamines, all that.
Exactly. So when they lose that communication ability, they don't function as optimally.
No, acetylcholine is the one that drops as you get Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
That's one of the neurotransmitters for those who are playing along at home.
Yes.
And there are certain cognitive tests you can do that you count backwards from 100, subtracting 7 at every time.
Goodness.
I know. It's like, but
93.
Yeah. But if you can work it out, you're actually quite cognitive. And the other classic Alzheimer's test is if you get 3 words like umbrella, cat, and rain, and then you say, now say those 3 back to me in that order. And if you can't say umbrella, rain, blah, blah, then you are in big trouble.
Oh, wow.
And that's just asking someone questions, and they should be able to answer very easily. Yeah. But you'll find people with Alzheimer's can't.
Actually, if you were to deduct 7, that's actually not as hard as it sounds.
No, it's not.
You just take 10 and add 3 each time.
Yeah. And that's someone with a healthy brain. But if you're cognitive decline, and that was the famous test.
Why is Matt laughing at me? I thought that was that's a hack.
That's a cheat.
Well, how's that a cheat? Still using your brain.
Oh yeah, so it's exactly.
It's a held back.
Yeah, you go back to 93, and then you go to 83, and then 86.
Sorry, Steve. Talk over the top of you. So nutrition is super important when it comes to obviously cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm. Well, while we're talking about cognitive decline, I want to remind you of a podcast we did a few weeks ago where we talked about that there's a way to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's by consuming cholesterol.
Yes, that's true.
Remember that?
Because the brain is majority fat.
Yeah.
So people who have low-fat diets. Yeah,
so I know you can make your own, but consuming it seemed to have some protective effect.
Yeah.
So the great brain food that we're probably all familiar with nutrition is eggs.
Yes.
And they're a good source of cholesterol,
as well.
Good choline, which makes acetylcholine, a good source of protein for your amino acids to make the neurotransmitters. So that's a really good brain food.
Yeah, definitely. Even your EPA, DHA is shown to have really good benefits with the
which is in eggs too
as well.
You can get DHA eggs, can't you? You can get eggs.
You can.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, I think you can. So, obviously exercise really good for the brain as well.
Really good.
And then key nutrients for the brain, obviously the acetylcholine and things like that. But a lot of them are really well studied. One's vitamin D.
Yep.
Very good for the brain. CoQ10.
Oh,
Your omega-3 fatty acids, we said, are B vitamins. as well. Really good. So and the brain, because it's very rich in lipid, content, it's susceptible to free radicals.
Ooh, what's a free radical?
So
that
free
sounds
radicals
like
and reacts.
someone you see on a, with a sign.
Radical. I know. So they basically can cause a lot of damage. Reactive oxidant species as well, Steve. They can create a lot of damage. So you need to have antioxidants in there to counter that.
And brain antioxidants, because we've got a barrier between our brain and our body called the blood-brain barrier.
Yes.
I didn't make that up, by the way, if you're playing at home. And you've got to get nutrients that can cross that. One of the ones I like is lipoic acid.
Yeah, I love lipoic acid.
To get into the brain.
Yeah, really good.
Vitamin E gets in the brain.
Love vitamin E, great cardiovascular as well.
Yeah.
So they're really good. And then your B vitamin for nervous system function, mood, stress support, very good for cognition, that sort of thing. Your omega-3 fatty acids for that inflammation and oxidative stress. And then your CoQ10 manages the production of your reactive oxygen species.
That's a good one, CoQ10. You want ubiquinol, not ubiquinone.
Yes, definitely ubiquinol, particularly if you're over 40 or 50 and you don't make the enzyme that can convert.
Both, that's me.
And me.
Dear. Nic, you're giving away your age a bit today.
I am giving. I think people probably.
I think people
probably realise I'm not 28, Steve. Just sort of it's
pretty obvious.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Oh
Matt
my
just said it's pretty obvious.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So I think people realise I'm not.
God. So I want to ask you about a weird nutrient that's anti-aging, the NADH. Or NAD plus.
NAD plus.
It's called plus because plus means hydrogen ion. So you can write it NAD plus or NADH, same thing.
Yeah.
What is that?
NAD, so it's a Sydney molecule, naturally present. It's in every cell of the body. Except, is it red blood cells?
No, they wouldn't have it. No, they wouldn't have much of it,
So it's there for DNA repair, cellular energy production, gene expression. And so that's where this big thing with NRs, so nicotinamide riboside, NMNs, and NADs are the big thing now. It's called when we're looking at anti-aging as far as supplements are concerned. So NAD is found in the mitochondria of every cell in the body. So we know mitochondria. That's a whole nother
energy thing.
Thing with the anti-aging. So NAD plus carries high energy electrons in the processes that create cellular energy. So it creates the ATP. So including glycolysis, the thank you.
Carboxylic acid,
acid cycle, mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation.
Yeah.
And then they're involved in sirtuin regulation as well.
Now, there's about 8 of those, and they're very, very important. But you got to remember, NAD plus can carry an electron because it's a plus, and an electron is a minus. So it neutralises the hydrogen out and can carry that electron down what we call the electron transfer chain, which is a massive energy production in the body.
Exactly.
So people... again, this looks like the magic bullet thing, but it's not because, you take this and the studies are very ambiguous in this. If you need it, it's great. If you already got enough of it, it won't help. Yeah,
exactly. And we did talk about in the last year in the anti-aging podcast, we talked about NR and NMN. But there's a lot of research now showing they're really not that beneficial, to be honest. They're really not doing much. And there is also the aspect as far as boosting NAD levels. Some work okay for different things, some of them, but it's very, very hit and miss. And the dosages have to be much higher than generally are recommended. So they're in the gram doses.
Yeah, it costs a fortune.
And And
here's another way to make it. How about you just go exercise?
Exactly.
It makes NAD.
That's right. And then that's when we start to move into, and we'll talk about the telomeres as well. Lengthening. But the body is a very smart machine, right? So if NAD levels are declining and then we try to intervene and put in an external substrate to try to increase the NAD levels, could that then start to throw things out of balance anyway? Because the body has its own processes. Yeah. And there's so many, there's so much coming out now that the NAD supplements they're really not doing anything. They're really not doing anything.
I'm not a fan. I had a friend in the family say, what do you think about that? I said, don't bother with it. And look, she's a a real estate agent. Okay, this family friend, and basically, it's really, if you think of it from a real estate point of view. Let's say I want to sell my house and I want as much money as I can. It'd be like me saying to her, should I have 4 or 6 chairs around the kitchen table to increase the value of my house? It's like, it doesn't really make any difference because it's only a tiny little part of one tiny little thing. And it's like, that's right. That's an AD.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like we can build 3 bedrooms on your house. You know, it's like, it's a tiny part of the bigger picture. As I said, I wouldn't bother with it.
No, exactly. So, NAD has around 500,000 different targets that it interacts with.
Yep.
And so the cells have to buffer all that.
Yep.
So if you start to, dysregulate NAD by either pumping it up when we already have enough, what's that actually going to do to that homeostasis? It doesn't go well in the body. So all of these things that we're trying to do, we're trying to change the way the body works.
Yeah.
And therefore, are we then opening ourselves up to lots of different problems? So like with the telomeres.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, trying to lengthen telomeres. Well, what actually happens when we think about, what if we're going to lengthen telomeres, could we then be predisposing ourselves to cancers and things like that?
Good question. We better explain what telomeres are.
Oh, yeah, telomeres.
At the end of each cell, and I can put up I've got a colour printout here of what telomeres look like on cells. I'm sure I'll find it eventually. But basically, telomeres are like the little plastic things that cover your shoelaces.
Yeah.
And there's a photo I'm holding up in front of the camera there. And you see the little ends of them. And in this picture, you got blue ones to this side, right or left, depending on what you're looking at. And then you got this side, the shorter ones. And you can see here that these antioxidants, all the cool stuff helps you keep healthy telomeres, fish, and all that stuff. And then you got oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, which shorten them. So you might think by that, well, hang on, let's just lengthen them.
Yeah.
And that'll be good. But lengthening them actually increases the risk of cancer. And this is a paper that, and people go, what? What are you talking about? This was published in Blood, the paper, 2022, and it's titled Telomeres, Aging and Cancer, the Big Picture. And basically it says long telomeres increase the risk of certain cancers, including melanoma, leukemia, and other cancers. So that's problematic. You don't want that.
No.
Especially, and also longer telomeres in leukocytes, white blood cells, were found to be a significant risk factor for the development of myeloproliferative neoplasm. So that's cancers of the blood. So you don't want that either. But then the next paragraph says short telomeres also increase cancer risk.
Yeah.
So if you've got 2 shorter ones, that's a problem. So in the old days, we thought that, we've got to lengthen them because then the cell lives longer and all that sort of thing, but it exposes your risk for cancer.
Yeah, because you're changing the way the body functions. And I think that's the thing that I love about the human body is we know a minute amount really about how the body functions really on a broad scale.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to put all these interventions in to change things. And it's really interesting with evolution. I mean, we're trying to research this from a different angle, obviously, when we're doing this podcast, and looking at, is the human body smart? Like, is there evolutionary, there is a reason we only live till maybe around 100, 80 to 100, like you look at that with all different animals, like this was what I found really fascinating. So things like mice, they don't live very long, right?
About 3 years.
Yeah, because they're very small and they're prey animals, so they're very high risk of getting killed and things like that. So they have lots of babies because they have a very short lifespan. So they get out there, they reproduce, and then you have something on the other end of the scale like a whale or a Greenland shark that lives for about 300 or 400 years.
500 years, the Greenland shark.
Yeah. So, and they have
few predators.
Very few predators. They have very, very slow metabolisms because they're designed, evolutionary wise to live a very long time. Humans are designed to live around 80 to 100 years. So fertility wise, with women fertile to around 40, 50, some women have a few babies and then it drops off. So if we're starting to mess with that and starting to extend our life, lifespan past what really it should be.
Yeah.
What are we starting to do? Like what are we starting to change in the body that really shouldn't be messed with? And that's when you can see onset of, possibility of all these cancers and things that are we going to be starting to create, because we're changing the biology to a point where it shouldn't be changed.
Because, we talked about the hay flick limber, which is the thing I'm talking about, 50 replications, and the cell becomes senescent. I mean, and then we say, we've got to lengthen that so they can replicate more and everything, and you get cancer.
Exactly.
But we do have to mention Brian Johnson, who's the lead singer of AC/DC, by the way.
Is that what you were talking about?
Brian Johnson. That. You know that, don't you?
I didn't know his name, no.
Anyway, Brian Johnson.
The one, Angus, he died though, didn't he?
No, Malcolm passed.
Oh, wasn't Angus?
Malcolm Young passed, his brother.
I don't know. I was young.
But Brian Johnson, the longevity dude, and I'm just going to call him out because he spends $2 million a year on
$2 million a year
and 111 supplements a day.
Yeah, so he's he's and this is where longevity coming in to work on longevity is actually what it's all about.
Yeah.
He's hacked his to the nth degree. His exercise, everything is like to the end, like
tests
on
everything.
On point. So now he's trying to biohack his way. So sorry, Nick, I just want to get the scene for this is really when people are saying, how do I live longer? This is what the lengths you have to go to.
Well, I'm a scientist. He's about 40-something years old. I don't know how old he is, but he's a bit younger than me. And he looks really good, which is great. He exercises, does everything perfectly, let's just say. And but is it the right way to go? You don't know, because a longevity, we can make a rat live longer by just feeding it a little bit less, calorie restriction.
Yes.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
And you can do that with most animals.
Yeah.
Fruit flies, rats, all that sort of thing. You can give a rat metformin, it'll live a bit longer, which is like a calorie restriction mimic drug from goats or a herb. But humans are very different because we have a big cerebral cortex.
Yes.
So we can think for ourselves.
Yeah.
In a rat, you can control for things. You can just stop. If I said to you, Nick, eat 20% less food, you're going to go, screw you, buddy.
Yeah.
And on the way home at the supermarket, you'll get whatever you want. So we're free so we can't. And plus, if you want to do a longevity study on humans, it'll take about 100 years because that's about how long we live.
Yeah, and that's the big problem is the metrics. I mean, people don't want to do these studies because it's going to take a long time. They cost a lot of money. So companies are putting out a lot of these anti-aging products.
Yeah.
So your NMs, NMMs, NADs, things like that. And people are like, this is great, this is great. And they're putting out all this research. But if you really look into the research, they're so flawed that you really can't say that they're actually doing anything at all. But I think the thing is people really are interested in longevity and they're really jumping onto these things because no one wants to die, right? So there's that sort of urgency as well. I don't want to wait 20 years for the study to come out. It's the same with rapamycin. So rapamycin is that's become the anti-aging, it's a drug, anti-aging drug. But rapamycin is an immunosuppressant.
Yeah.
So then what do you then open up if you're on rapamycin and you suppress your immune system, you open yourself up to
cancers and
so other
infections. Because overactive immune system leads to inflammation. Inflammation causes aging and death long term. Cut along short. So the idea for that is that, hey, let's just take anti-inflammatories, like that one, or immune suppressants, but really, it's like, what does it open up to you? And to test longevity on humans, it'll take 100 years. There's a study here that I got a lot of this thing, and it's called "Does Diet Influence Aging?" and Evidence from Animal Studies, and that's what the paper's called, and it's published in JIM. And and this was published. This was done in Sydney. And basically, it looked at all the studies on animals, which is the best we've got.
Well, you can't really do it on people, can you? Because one, it takes too long, and two, they
talk about calorie restriction, but we've been telling people to eat less for years, and they don't.
Yeah.
They still get fat. In fact, since we've been telling them that, we've got fatter.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work.
No, and it's interesting with the calorie restriction because there's a lot of studies to say that yes, it works, but they're comparing it to maybe people who are not having a nice balanced diet anyway. So people are overeating as a generally these days anyway. And if you start to restrict calories, then that can start to impact metabolic function, thyroid health, brain function, all of that sort of thing. And it's interesting with the mTOR and the AMPK. So mTOR, we have a lot of that when we're growing.
Yeah.
We need a lot because we're growing. But as we get older, you can pull your food back. And I think from a physiological standpoint, that's the way it should be, because we shouldn't have as much mTOR, because obviously that's a growth pathway. We've talked about that before. You don't want to have that pathway active all the time because that's growth. In that could mean cancer growth as well.
Yeah.
So calorie restriction, I think people go too far the other way as well. And that back to that Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
So he eats one meal a day. I think it's one meal a day, really, really, all over it with the macros and everything. He has, what did you say, 110 supplements a day?
111
supplements a day. He sleeps at certain times, like to the limit.
Yeah. 8 hours.
8 hours, and it's a certain times every day. I think he goes to bed early.
8 till 4 or some shit.
Yeah. So is he actually really living?
Yeah.
Like, yes, he might be extending his life, he might not. We don't know, because as I said, it's one person, so how do you find the metrics for one person? But it's not really living. So, and that's really when people say, well, how do I extend my life? They're the extent you have to go to if you're looking at actually biohacking yourself to live longer than genetically.
I reckon in 50, 60 years we'll find it if he does.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously extraordinarily wealthy.
Yeah, yeah.
And not many people are that wealthy. And not many people, even if they are wealthy, would want to live like that.
Because I don't think that that's living.
No.
You're not enjoying your life. And I think that's kind of where the balance needs to come in.
I think he's enjoying his life because he likes that shit, likes blood tests daily.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I guess the average pundit out there has to, at 45, I think that's the age, they have to have a job to support their usual family or themselves.
That's right, yeah.
He made a lot of money early on, and that's great. But, yeah, but I still find it interesting.
Oh, it's
I want to see what happens to him.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see. I mean, it'd be tragic if he got a. I mean, there's been some longevity guys in the past that have not lived that long.
No, well, I mean, you could go to all this trouble and walk outside and get hit by a bus, couldn't you?
There is that. I mean,
it's like
there
the
is
accidents come into play with we're talking about this.
Accidents are a big deal, and in anti-aging, and the way I look at it is look, I think we can all do some kind of exercise, and what we look for in longevity is things like association. So we can associate exercise with, and there's data on this, to support our health span.
Yes.
Does it make us live longer? Maybe. Because it may save you from getting a heart attack or diabetes or cancer, which will kill you sooner. So we can certainly try and prevent the things that kill us sooner. Now, aging itself, which is the area that's exciting, is really difficult. So we look for associations. There's a paper here in the International Journal of General Medicine, and they look for associations. So what do people typically do to make them live longer? And there's one association here published, and it says total meat intake is associated with life expectancy, so a longer life expectancy. And it's a cross-sectional data analysis of 175 contemporary populations. So they looked at the whole world, published in Australia, and they found that the more meat you eat, the longer you live. Now, does that mean that meat makes you live longer? Maybe not, because it's an association, doesn't mean causation.
Yeah.
It could be that the meat eaters in the population of the world typically have got more money, which means typically they can afford health care or typically avoid the terrible jobs that kill you sooner, whatever they are, terrible stuff like that. So, but it's an association. Yeah. So that's all we can go on at the moment. It's very interesting, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously muscle mass is connected to longevity and obviously high protein intake.
There's the correlation. Yeah. You see the graph goes up as you more meat you eat. But that's called a positive correlation. But again, there are dots that are way outside this one.
Yeah, and then you can get papers on a plant-based diet helps you live longer. So it all depends. There's so many variables. You said there's correlation, not causation.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many variables. So I think, this is my opinion of longevity. I mean, I don't know if I would want to live into my hundreds anyway, because what if all my friends and family are gone? Like, what's the point? So I think it should be about, instead of saying longevity, health span. Yeah. Extend your health span so that you're living your life healthier to the end, basically.
Yes, very much so.
Instead of saying, well, what can I do for my longevity? What pill can I take? Well, how about do the exercise, as we discussed, the nutrition, not overeating, eating a balanced meal, not too extreme one way or the other. Mediterranean style eating is a really balanced style of eating, good for good for aging well. Yeah. your emotional health, your stress management. They're the sort of things you should be focusing on rather than what's the best pill to take for anti-aging.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and we work for a pill company and we'd love to be flogging off an anti-aging drink now, and they're out there.
They are, and the reason we haven't done them is because the evidence isn't there at this point to show that these are beneficial. A lot of these,
we know there's things to help you reduce the appearance of aging. You know, like there's certain collagens there, Verisol's one, certain nutrients and that's fine. We've got that wired, and if you're interested in that, but you can't do that at don't say take that and then don't exercise. That's just nuts. Or take that and don't worry about your diet. No. You've got to worry about the big things first.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the Botox or the laser resurfacing on your face or something like that unless you're going to do the other stuff, because that's the Brian Johnson thing. He does lasery things because he does all the rest of it.
He's done all the rest. He's done everything. So, so things like, your broccoli sprout for your sulforaphane, your curcumins, your ECGCs, those things are amazing, and they're bunched into the longevity things, but they're just all for health span.
Yes.
They're reducing inflammation, they're working on cognition, they're doing all these things. So they're really important to still have in your diet. Quercetins, I love quercetin. I love berberine. I think berberine's amazing for health span. But as far as extending your life, they haven't really found anything specific. And even the rapamycin, like they talk about, yes, there's a bit of research about it, but do you want to be taking something that's suppressing your immune system?
Yeah. By the way, but don't get confused with doxycycline, which is an antibiotic. But very interesting with all this sort of stuff is what we've got to look at is we've got to keep our mind open to something that could come up.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's very difficult to test it on humans.
Yes.
We can look at rat trials, and rat trials like resveratrol extends life in rats about 10% or whatever.
Yeah, which is funny because you know the doses of resveratrol that that you actually use. So, I mean, I don't use resveratrol much in clinic. I was taking it, but the doses are 10 times what they're actually putting out there. And resveratrol is super expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
So things like that. So people say, I'm taking a little bit of resveratrol. Well, how much are you taking? Because you need to be taking big gram doses, and people are taking 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams. It's not really doing much.
Nah.
One thing I did learn about resveratrol, though, is very good antimicrobial for the gut.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, which I didn't know. So I've just found that
makes sense. It is a polyphenol.
Yeah, so it does have other benefits, but as far as the anti-aging, but things like, and even a lot of these supplements and nutrients that are for longevity and anti-aging, they need to be in very big doses, much bigger than people are taking. So you have to take that into consideration as well.
Absolutely. And also do the basics, like cut the smoking out, cut the trans fats, cut the refined carbohydrates out. They're no-brainers. Go to your, at our age, over 50, we have a bowel screening test every 2 years. Have you been sent one in the mail?
I never got sent one for my 50th. No, I never got one.
God.
Because I obviously I thought I was too young.
Oh, you're not.
No, but I've done my own stool analysis in the past. I do comprehensive ones. So,
that's right.
But no, I never got one.
Oh, I get one in the mail every 2 years. So do those basic tests, because if you've got bleeding in the colon and they get scoped out and there's a cancer there, they can treat it. And that's so use medicine as well. And that's, to me, is a preventative medicine, is doing those non-invasive tests.
Yeah.
They're literally free, paid for by the government, and you can get a stool and send it off and go to get the blood test regularly. You're a fan of the blood test.
Get your biomarkers that we talked about. Get them checked regularly.
But get your PSA checked.
Get PSA checked.
Yeah, get those inflammatory markers, get all those things checked so as you can prevent the diseases that will kill you sooner and probably more likely to kill you sooner, and then, keep with the exercise, keep with the discipline of exercise.
Yeah, and do a span. If you're looking at longevity, do as we talked about, but work on all that stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than what's the best supplement, what's the best pill to take, because that stuff is just so far, like the Brian Johnsons. That's where the level you'd have to be before you'd start to think about
it,
adding in your NADs and things, because you've got so many other contributing factors that people aren't addressing.
Look, and even if you've got a chronic disease like ankylosing spondylitis like mine, that shortens your life. So try and combat those things that will kill you sooner.
Yeah.
You've got diabetes now. Oh, look, you try and reverse that because too much sugar in the blood. It causes those rages and ages and all those. It will kill you sooner, and it will grossly impact your brain, eyes, kidneys, everything.
Yeah.
You lose limbs from that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, get away from those diseases so you can get into the longevity thing. Don't get taken out too early.
Yeah, and if you're really interested in longevity, then get everything on point, dialed into the nth degree on point, and then think about the longevity because there's no point otherwise.
Yeah, I've seen anti-aging.
All your anti-aging supplements.
Yeah.
There's just not enough research to show that they're overly effective at this point in time. And if anyone finds research, unbiased research, because you've also got to really know how to read research papers and look at who the authors are, look at any biases. A lot of the supplement companies do a lot of research, bring out research papers that look amazing, but you've got to really pick them in.
Oh, in a petri dish should extend the cells by 20%. That's called the in vitro test.
Yeah,
they don't translate.
Studies, all those sort of things. You've got to really look at
and you know, I'm guilty of that. I've got an animal study here, which we talk about calorie restriction.
Yeah.
But does that work in humans? We don't know. It'll be 100 years till they do a trial on that.
That's right.
And you got to lock people up. And monitor what they eat all the time.
That's right.
Who wants to live
No
like
one wants
that?
to do that. Yeah.
And who wants to be hungry all the time?
Yeah, not me. I'm hungry now, Steve.
Oh, I'm hungry now. Well, it is time for lunch. We've been at this for an hour and 20, so we should wrap it up.
We should.
All right, Nic, we'll be able to go. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Take care.
See ya. All right, so FAQ, Steve.
Love it. Let's go.
Love it. We've got FAQ. So keep sending in your FAQs. So you can either send them to customer service. No, don't send it to customer service. You can put them in the comments below.
Yep.
Or contact ATP.
Yep.
See that.
Just look at all the stuff down below. Matt's telling me I'm doing it all wrong, Steve. All wrong, as usual.
Glad you're doing this. I would have got it wrong
Let's
too.
just get straight into the questions, shall we?
What's the question?
All right, first one is from Emma.
Okay.
So,
Emma.
morning, guys. So excited about FAQs being back. So we love FAQs.
I love FAQs.
So much fun. I love your brand and what you stand for. That's awesome. I recommend your products all the time. Anyway, my question is about poop. We love poop.
Great. We love our poos.
Talk about poop. Always constipated unless I take a Perriant like Movicol, which I take every day, and even then I can go 2 to 3 days without going to the toilet.
That's a powdery laxative.
Yeah. Some additional Perriants I might take if I haven't gone is Docusate and Senna and magnesium, even if I don't feel like I've completely emptied my bowel. A recent CT of abdo-pelvis showed fecal impaction. I eat unprocessed foods. I drink 3 to 4 litres a day, and I don't take any prescription medications.
Good.
I use creatine, a few other products of ours.
Yep.
Digestive enzymes, protein. I've recently added psyllium husks to my oats or sprinkled on my other meals. I also train 5 days a week, focusing on body recomp building, minimum 15,000 steps, and maybe a hit one. I'm just like the perfect client. And hit 2 times a week. Is my bowels just slack, or is there another way I can encourage them to be regular? Any advice would be greatly appreciated.
Really tricky. The first thing I'd look for here is a comprehensive digestive stool kit, because it's not just a constipation that's passed. There's something chronically wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, what's missing? I mean, are there microbes that are missing that aren't moving things along? I'm going to assume the diet's really good, but plenty of fruits and vegetables and all that sort of stuff could be a really good addition to this. That she's drinking enough water, which is great. So certainly a fecal test would be indicated for her.
100%.
But having said that, you could use things like polyphenols, which usually regulate the microbiome. You could try that first if you wanted to and see if that normalises things. Yeah. But these are heavy-hitting laxatives.
Yeah, they're not working. There's something
real wrong. She's been CT'd, so that's the other thing there. So she has fecal impactation. So absolutely, I think she'd have a comprehensive digestive stool analysis. But try things like polyphenols. Our magnesium won't help her because the magnesium here we don't use. We don't doesn't have a laxative effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you add to that one?
So I'd say, have you had any health issues? So have you had any food poisoning in the past? Yeah. When did it start? What happened before that? Have you always been constipated since you were very young? If you were you born naturally? That can impact the development of the microbiome. But gastritis or food poisoning, things like that, can impact the migrating motor complex, which is what helps to push the stool
along
through.
Peristalsis,
so there's that. You could do you have gas associated with that? Could be a methane dominant SIBO. That's very common with constipation. Comes with constipation. Thyroid function. What's your thyroid function?
Oh, of course, the thyroid function. Yeah.
So I'd be looking at a lot of you're focusing on the things to help you go, obviously, for symptom relief, but it's not looking at the underlying issue. So you really need to get to that. So definitely stool analysis, some amazing stool, we do DNA level testing now.
Oh, they're really good, aren't they?
They're really good.
Shotgun testing.
Shotgun metagenomics. And then get all your bloods, your thyroid markers and all that sort of stuff done, and then have a look back to if you have had any food poisoning, you might need to do some SIBO testing as well. So dig a little bit deeper, because that if you're doing all of those things and you're really struggling, there's some fairly significant going on under there.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right,
Nick. Well, I've got one for you from Tia in ACT.
All right.
I'm so excited to submit a question. I've been following ATP for years and really value advice. Love it. I've been dealing with severe bloating in the past few months, and it's really starting to interfere with my daily routine, as it would. By the end of the day, my stomach feels swollen and tight. That it's hard to even focus. I eat a pretty clean diet with lots of vegetables, lean protein, whole grains, and I drink about 2 to 3 litres of water a day. I've recently cut back on processed foods and sugar, but the bloating continues. I take a few supplements regularly, including multivitamin, omega-3s, collagen powder, and I work out 4 to 5 times a week, mostly weight training and some yoga. I've tried reducing my portion sizing and eating slower, but nothing seems to help. Could there be something causing the bloating, like a gut imbalance or food sensitivity? I'd love any advice you can give me and help reduce the bloating and feel more comfortable. Nick, that's a really common one, isn't it? You get bloating is terrible.
I think we should do a podcast on bloating, because it's actually a huge problem, and it's a huge area.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the symptoms are, Tia, that the stomach's swollen and tight, is that coming on straight after eating, or is that developing over the course of the day? Because there's ways you can look at whereabouts the issue is. So if you're eating and swelling straight away, there's something going on in the gut, if in the actual stomach. If it's within a couple of hours, generally it's small intestine.
Yeah.
And even longer, it's large intestine. So, and if it's down very low, it can also be reproductive in females as well.
Okay,
so it's more in the lower abdominal. So that can give you a little bit of an indication of maybe where it is.
She says by the end of the day, my stomach feels so swollen and tight. So
it's gradually getting bigger throughout the day. So I'd be looking at more maybe even large intestine. There could be some imbalances going on there. So, so overgrowth of some bacteria possibly in the large intestine. It could even be SIBO, depending if there's what her stools are like. You'd have to look at that, gas and all that sort of thing. But again, some gut testing would be really beneficial, some SIBO testing. And symptom relief can be even something, I know I bang on about it, but apple cider vinegar can be really good.
It
helps to increase that stomach acid.
Yeah.
It could just be that she's got really poor digestive function, low acid and enzyme production. So she could start with making sure she's chewing her food really well, not drinking gallons of water with her food. Taking some apple cider vinegar, increase the acids, maybe some digestive enzymes. Did she say she's taking them? No, that was the last one.
No, it's not. She's on whole grains though. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, sometimes high fibre can make things worse. Yeah. And it depends. And this is where when people ask me, well, what should I eat if they have gut problems? I'm like, you really need to test your microbiome, because we could be feeding something that's overgrown. Like she could have high Klebsiella in there, for instance. And so they love starchy foods. They thrive on that. So getting your microbiome tested will then give us a really good indication of what, one, is the imbalance, and two, what you should be cutting out of your diet or reducing or putting in to either feed or not feed, depending on what's there. So that could be a really good start. But symptom relief, definitely try some apple cider vinegar. Try chewing your food, and if you're not rushing your food, that can be a big part of it as well.
Gotcha.
Including some polyphenols in your diet. You could try that. Some polyphenol-rich foods or some polyphenol-type supplements can be really good to help to balance out the microbiome a little bit.
Okay.
What would you say, Steve?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I'd certainly... I think you got to get stool testing, but you could just try a good old rotational limitation diet. Yeah. Maybe even just go carnivore for a day, see what that does, and just eat that sort of stuff, or just really cut it right back and then start to add some things in. Yeah, really. But I agree with all that stuff you suggesting. The stool test would be excellent. Again, saying that again.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if everyone comes to me, I'd like to do a stool test.
Oh, it's so budget, beneficial.
But it just gives you so much information. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. All right.
All right. Do you want me to read this one out for you, Nick?
Sure. Maybe I'll take this one.
Long time listener, first time caller. This is Wendy from Logan down the road here.
I feel like Fraser. Remember Fraser, that TV show?
It's still on.
Is it?
He made a reboot.
Oh, really?
It's my mother's favourite show.
Oh, and that's what they always say on that. Long time listener.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm struggling with menopausal weight gain and it's getting me down. The things I used to do to lose weight are not working at all. I am feeling so depressed about the way I look and don't know what to do. Nic, what can I do?
Yeah, this is a huge area.
Oh.
And it's a huge problem.
It's a podcast on itself too.
We should do a podcast. I mean, we don't do a lot of menopause female stuff but if women are out there, they want us to do more of these type ones, then let us know in the comments below, because we don't do a lot of them because we don't know if there's the need for it. So, I mean, the demand. But I would like to talk more about it because I think it's a massive problem.
I think it's a massive problem too.
Yeah, and menopausal weight gain is obviously really common. So the things I used to do to lose weight are not working at all. There's a reason for that, because physiologically, so your hormonal profile is completely different than it was when you still had hormones. So a lot of people think that women think, and in the general thoughts are that the lack of hormones are what make you gain weight. But it's not actually the case.
Not at all. So
what actually happens is, because of the shift in hormones, the things that you're doing then can accentuate weight gain. So when you still had hormones, like you still had your estrogen. Estrogen's very anabolic.
Yep.
And it also helps with blood sugar regulation and that sort of thing. So as soon as you lose your estrogen, you can start to lose muscle mass.
Yeah.
You start to lose muscle mass, obviously, then you can start to actually have more body weight because you're losing that metabolic sort of effect of the muscle. You become a lot more insulin resistant. So blood sugar imbalances, insulin resistance, and that is because, again, you don't have those hormones to help to balance out, to help to buffer that insulin. So women who are menopausal generally are highly, have a lot of stress. They have careers, they have children, they have, maybe teenagers, they have aging parents, maybe they're looking after, they have all these stressors. So their cortisol is high. Their body can't manage the stress the way it could when they had the hormones, because they also help with that. So therefore, they're creating high cortisol, blood sugar dysregulation, which is contributing to the blood sugar, the insulin resistance. They're maybe still eating a diet maybe a little bit higher in carbohydrates or sugars, because previously they could and that it was okay, whereas now their body, again, that insulin becomes a factor. More inflammation, the lack of hormones creates inflammation in the body. So there's a lot of contributing factors that go into it. So you have to change a lot of things. So things that, women used to say, well, I used to just diet and exercise harder. Well, you can't, because you'll actually just won't lose weight or you'll put on weight because it creates more inflammation.
Sort of like treating a new body, aren't you, after menopause?
You are, because you've got to remember it's like the second puberty in a way, but in reverse. So when you go through puberty, you go all over the place, and there's the moods and the pimples and the putting on body fat and all these sorts of things. It's the same because you're now on the other end of it. So you have to change everything that you've done. You can't exercise the same way. You can't eat the same way. So it's a massive question. But first, I guess, look at your diet and reduce your carbohydrates down. So you don't want to totally take them out, but you want to put them around maybe exercise. Focus on protein and vegetables and things like that. Don't do a lot of high intensity exercise, because that just shoots up your cortisol stress response. Postmenopausal women can't tolerate as much of that. Focus on strength training. Dial in your calories, and I'm not one for calorie counting at all, but you need to get a metric. So a lot of women aren't eating anywhere near enough calories. They think they're eating too much. They're not eating enough. So if you're not eating enough, again, you can't fuel your metabolism.
Well, your thyroid goes down.
Which is already becomes a problem postmenopausal. So you have gut changes, you have liver changes, changes with lipids, which then impacts cardiovascular health, and changes with thyroid. So you have to dial everything in, and you actually can't you can't be lax with anything when you're going through menopause. You have to be all over the stress management, all over the exercise, the right type of exercise, as I said, strength training, some cardiovascular in there as well, cardiovascular exercise in there as well, and diet. You have to dial it right in, because you just cannot
no wines after dinner.
Alcohol's the worst thing you can do postmenopausally.
The worst thing is,
Sugar's the worst thing you can do. So, whole foods, regular movement, regular stress management, and sleep.
Yes.
Because sleep also changes. You're losing that progesterone, which is it's GABAergic, so it helps with relaxation. So when they go, I can't sleep anymore.
Yeah.
So that also impacts it as well. So you have to work on your sleep. If you're not sleeping, impacts your stress response, therefore gain weight. So there's a lot in it. So you have to work on all of the foundations: sleep, stress management, exercise, diet. So it can be a really big area. We should do a podcast on it.
We should do a podcast.
Let us know if you want us to.
Yeah.
If there's a demand for it, because it's really common for women to really struggle with this.
All right, Nic. Well, that's amazing answer. Wow. But you're right. I couldn't add a thing to it. That's great, Nic. Well, that's about all we've got time for. We'll see everyone next week.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye. All right. Well, am I doing the intro?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was all calm and confused, and now see you guys.
Giggling again.
You guys rile me up and then expect me to just go straight into it. And then you look at me like that.
Well, what? I have to look at you. It's like I'm not going to go. Oh, hey, Nic.
All right, let's just compose ourselves. Everyone, just calm down.
Yeah. Stop it.
Stop it. It's suddenly hot in here. All right. Okay. Is this a silver bullet that you just to kill you, or the golden ticket? That sounded like you knew exactly what you were talking about.